So the question for me is why journalism? Why does journalism matter? And does it solve a real problem? And is it going to be enough of a lift for us to help our community? And so I think journalism will solve some problems, and I think that's my point. And so what problems do I think it'll solve? Well, I think there are a couple of problems. First of all, there's a lack of reliable and accurate information. The two big problems I think here. The lack of reliable, accurate information is kind of like the news is more like, let's watch a bunch of stuff we can't do anything about, or stuff, cutesy things that don't really matter, like on the local news where they're like, oh, check out how the dogs at the local, kennel or whatever. and and there's nothing wrong with that, I suppose. But if it replaces questions about our government, if it distracts us from the things that matter to us, and it stops being useful. And so, an example of that would be they'll cover. I saw, their immigration is a huge concern on people's minds. The local news, the only coverage I saw on it, and granted, I'm not looking every day, but as soon when I went on to see how they're covering it, I noticed they said there was a headline that said immigrants paying 40 million or billion or whatever the number it was. I have no sense of proportion anymore for that kind of thing into the state taxes or whatever. And so, oh, so immigrants are good. And it's just a very very high level, um, unhelpful, very very specific point they're trying to make it seem like. And so that doesn't help us very much. What we need to know is how, as a community, do we take responsibility for our community? Which leads me to the other point, which is the assumption that it has to be fixed through government. That oh no, all is lost if we don't get the right people elected, or if we don't get Prop One defeated, and all those things. I hope we do, but I think maybe now is the time for individual people to say, when they say from the government, they say fight, 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 right? From Donald Trump, how do you fight? What do you like? Pick up a gun? I mean, how do you fight, right? And the only way we know how to fight is think about the military. If you have bad intel, how are you going to fight? If you have no intel, how are you going to fight? If you have no leadership, how are you going to fight? Journalism journalism is kind of like intel. It's kind of like S2 for the for the world. In our case, in our county, um, we may not be able to affect things at the national level, but each county and each city can create journalism, can create a journalistic tradition, can train journalists, storytellers, people who can really effectively get truth across, people who can investigate and get really good information to people, and people who can help people learn how to think. And when I say that, I'm not saying we're supposed to teach them to see things exactly the way we do, but we're supposed to teach them how to think in a way that's constructive and helps people. And what I mean by an example of that is, or what I mean by that, I guess, is that when the world is telling you everything's vague, there is no truth, all these things, you're telling them no. When you say things, you're challenging that, and you're saying no, government and activists or whoever. When you say those things, when you say those Marxist things or whatever, you're not helping people. You're just pretending to help people, and you're calling them to account. And so now what we do, what the goal is to have the journalists who can say, how would we know, right? Like if someone makes a claim, the journalist will say, how will we know? How would we know? And then go get the information and hold people accountable and ask questions and not softball people. And I think we've seen some really bad examples of that with interviews for the presidential candidates, where some are held to account. Sometimes they're held to account. Sometimes they're just get softball questions trying to humanize them or whatever. It's as if the media is working for a political party, and I don't think that should be true at all. And I think that if we get people thinking right, if we get people thinking, how would we know, and asking those questions, now we'll be able to. They will start demanding, they will start asking questions, they will start getting involved. And then what happens in a community like ours, where we have a lot of farmers, where we have a lot of We have problems with our public schools. We have, we're sending our kids to public schools and we feel stuck because there's no alternative supposedly. But if we really know the problems in our area, because we have the intel, because people are investigating it and are helping us understand it at a level that is specific and deep enough to where it's actionable, not like the news today, but at a level that's actionable. And if the government doesn't take care of it or they're not doing a good job, then we're like, well, we're going to take care of our community. We're going to take care of the people here. We're going to take care of, sheriff's department. What's going on? Well, we need help in this where we don't have enough, deputies or whatever. um, well, hey, we have some retired security people who live in the area. Let's ask them what we should do. And then they're like, well, we need more neighborhood watches, and they can help, like organize those in cooperation with the sheriff's department, maybe. But if we're just like, why isn't the sheriff's department? Well, we need more money. Well, or even the schools. The schools are like, we need more money, right? There and a lot of people are skeptical about that. We want to know, well, how much money gets sucked up. Like if we're investing in a business, we want to see the financials. We want to be able to see what it looks like when it's efficiently run, what it looks like currently, and how it's working, and then ask questions. But if nobody can investigate those things or try to understand them, then how are we going to know how to vote? We're going to be, there's going to be a claim over here and a claim over here, and nobody's really going to know, and everyone's going to feel helpless and powerless because we don't have any information. But if we have information and we can say, okay, well, here's what's going on, then the public school may say, we need more money. And the community may say, well, we have a different solution. We're going to solve this problem ourselves. Or here's how we're going to help you, public school. And it puts if we're willing to take responsibility because we have more intel and we know how to think, then we're going to be able to challenge, uh, we're going to be able to challenge the federal government. We're going to be able to hold our ground when people are encroaching on what our community should be doing. In the old days, neighbors took care of neighbors, and you had cities and counties that took care of their own concerns. And even states, right? We like to get the power to the state and local level because that's where people take care of themselves and take care of each other. If I know that there are people starving, or even just, like starving is one thing, right? Oh, have a food pantry. But what about those people who are like, well, I'm not starving. I'm just struggling to pay the bills. And food prices have gone up so much. And what if there's a group of people out there, farmers, logistics people who are, in the milk industry, who are just like, hey, there's a certain amount of waste we have. I wonder if there's a way to rechannel that waste to the local, maybe we can get Ridley's to participate in a, hey, here's the low cost option, or, whatever. And it's like a half the price of a normal gallon of milk because, we have so much in our area because we make so much milk and stuff. I don't know the answers to that. I just happen to know I happen to know from experience that there's a lot of waste. And if people don't know what the goals are, what problems there are out there, there's no way to channel that waste. There's no way to optimize because we don't know what problems we're solving. And so, oh, it's the sheriff's department in